Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Streaming Alchemy. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're going to take a look at instant replay in vMix, and specifically, we're going to be showing sort of for this show how this could work for a solo operator. And we're also going to be using the XKE-64 replay controller from the folks at PI Engineering. So they were very generous to lend us this unit for this show. So I will definitely include this, but you'll get to see the entire replay structure inside of vMix over this show and our next show on replay. But before we get into that, I'd like to invite everybody, if you have any questions, have any comments, just post them and we'll try to get to them all live on air. If you'd like to join us live on air, we have a link in the show notes and here on the screen that will give you the link you need to join us here live, and somebody will get you on with us. All right, so let me get started. It sounds like a simple topic, but there's really a lot of detail that we will need to cover over these next two shows. So what I really want to begin with is just going over what a live replay would look like inside a vMix session. So let's go over here. I have this vMix preset set up. And as you can see, I've got two players here coming in, playing a game. This is Team Fortress 2. We chose this game because it is representative sort of the esports genre, but also because Valve, who makes this game, allows you to post video content online, for gameplay and other things. So we wanted to make sure we respected the copyright here. So I'm not going to say these players that we have here are exemplary of the pinnacle of the sport, but they're certainly good enough for everything we want to do here on our show today. So we have these two feeds that are coming in. We have a couple of stingers for introducing when the replay comes on the screen and when it goes off. And that's a little audio swish we have that goes with that. And then what we have here, if you look right in this section here, is our replay controller. And the way this works, if you come here and say add input, there is, on the types of inputs you have, instant replay. And so instant replay will let you come in and set everything up for your replay session. And so what I'll do is, as opposed to opening a second one here, I'm just going to click on this little gear down here, and we get everything we have set up for our current one. So let me go sort of from the top, and we'll just dive into all of this, and then I'll jump over to comments as soon as we finish this piece. But you have the ability here in setting up your replay to say, where do I want to save all my replay files? So the concept of replay is that you start recording all the cameras that you want to capture in replay, and it continuously records all of them in the background. And at any point you want to capture a segment of that, you can turn around and create what would be in replay called an event. And you create this basic list of events which are a start time and an end time, basically an in point and an out point in this recording that you can then use to replay and to sort of play that segment back. So that's basically what this is. So you need a place to store this. So it should be some type of very fast drive, SSD definitely, and have enough space for all the recordings that you're going to make. So in this case, though, one of the things you do have is you can pick the resolution. We're matching everything up to our current session. But what you can do is you can turn around and say, what quality do I want to have this replay come in at? In almost all cases, low quality should be fine. It's smaller and less taxing on the system. And by the time you've sort of streamed out your replay, people probably won't notice it. You may want to go high quality if you're doing stuff for archival reasons or to export or other things, but at least in this case, we're just going to use low quality, and we think that will, for a lot of situations, be fine. So what you see now, because I have this set up, this is coming around and saying, based on my current settings, I have the ability to record 4 cameras at this recording quality for 9 hours and 51 minutes. So we definitely have enough time for everything we want to do here. And we only have 2 cameras, so we actually have much more time available to us than that. You can just delete all the video from prior recordings when you come in, and that's a good way usually to start. If you have that all backed up, just go in and create a fresh space on your disk. And then what you have here is the ability to select the cameras that you're going to use, basically the inputs that are coming in. But it's not just any inputs. It has to be an NDI input or a camera input coming in. So this gives you, in this case, up to 8. This is a vMix Pro license we're using here. In a vMix 4K, you'd only get 1 camera. But for what we're going to do on today's show, that should be fine. And for the solo operator, that's probably going to be all you'd ever really need here. So that sets up that piece. Down here, though, is the last bits for when you do a playback, what do you want to actually see? So it comes back and says, what's the audio source when I do a playback? So I could pick a specific camera, or I could come in and say, just follow whichever camera is playing. I want to use that camera. And I want to use the audio from that camera. So this means that if you had different angles with different people speaking, you can capture that uniquely and play that all back. The second thing, it's coming saying, what do I want to use for a transition in? So when I go to do a replay, and what do I use for a transition out? And that replay in and out sequence, we're using stingers. So we have a stinger to say we're in replay mode, and then a stinger to say we're back to live mode. And that's what we set up here. And then for each one of the events that are in your replay, what's the transition you want between? Do you just want to cut, or do you want to do something that's more visually significant, where people say, okay, this is another angle, this is something else we're doing? So you have that ability to put that in here and set the time for that. So this is everything for the basic setup. There are a few other things that I do want to touch on. In the options tab, we were in the session tab up here. In the options tab, you say show replay sources when replay is live, when we're actually recording against the live feeds. You can turn around and say, I want to see those show up in my preset. That's just useful. And show previews of all camera angles when not in live mode. Again, these are just useful things to keep you aware. You have the ability to play audio at lower speed, so you can change the speed. Like if you've watched sports, you can see where they slow something down to give you a sense of, what actually happened in detail. You can turn around and say, if I'm slowing down, I don't want that audio playing back at the slow speed sort of thing, where you get that weird sounding audio coming in. You can turn that on or off. So it either will play it at half speed or quarter speed or whatever, or it just won't play audio if it's not 100%. So this is what we did for our initial setup. So with that sort of set as a background here, let me go and we'll jump in to look at basically the comments we have, and then we'll jump back into the next session here. So let's see. Thank you everybody for joining. So Marco is saying, evening everybody. So Marco, thank you. Good to have you here. So we have Vlad. Vlad, good to see you here again. Thank you. We have Griswold Sports. Hello, Griswold. How are you? Thank you for joining. So Biz Shorty is here on time. Way to go, Biz Shorty. Thank you for being a part of this. Appreciate it. So you the man, thank you for joining. I appreciate that. So Josh, good afternoon to you as well, Josh. Thanks. Samuel Nordvik, greetings from Robbinsville, New Jersey over here. So thank you for joining us, Samuel. So Bill Mew from Royal Tunbridge Wells in the UK. Bill, thank you for joining here. So So Prophet DK is saying, can you do a video on how to do replay in church service of football match? So everything that we're doing here is going to be generic enough so that anything that we cover could be applied to any type of replay situation. So hopefully this will cover everything you're looking for. So Vlad's saying, good to know that Valve allows it. Yeah, there is actually a link where we didn't post it in the notes. We probably will, where it just says this is the licensing for that. So yes, any Valve game you can stream on any one of these streaming services. So Dave Edwards, Dave, great to see you here. Thanks for joining. So Tom Willis is here checking on Dave. So hi, Tom. Thanks for being here. Okay, so now that we have everything sort of outlined in our setup here, what I'd like to do is sort of open up the instant replay tab. So if we jump back over to our vMix preset here, what you'll notice is over here where we have everything set up for our replay, we have a new tab over here called Instant Replay. You traditionally used to the audio tab, you open that up and you see all your audio mixers, the sliders for your audio mixer. There is a similar thing now for Instant Replay, where if you come here, you now have all your controls for Instant Replay that sit down here. So what I want to do is go through this now in a little more detail since we introduced this. And there's a few simple concepts, but then that sort of expands to how everything works. So the first thing we mentioned is that there is a recording that's going on continuously. And that recording is going to pick up each one of the cameras that we have set up. So if you look right down here in this middle section, so this is giving you a 1 and a 2. Those are the two cameras that we set up when we configured the instant replay. So if you remember over here, we set these up. So this is camera 1 and camera 2. If I had a third camera or a fourth camera, that would be represented here as additional numbers. So right now, for any replay, I can pick one camera or the other that I want to be working with. But the key thing here is that both of these cameras are recording all the time. So the way you start off is you just click down here where it says begin recording cameras. So you click here, and what's going to happen now is, since this is live coming in, now I have the video that's coming in from these two cameras that are being ingested into my replay system. So what else can you do here now? So the way this works now is I have, every time I want to capture a replay, I capture what's called an event. And so these events can come in through different things. I can mark an in point and an out point. So say I know something's going to happen, something's coming up, I can go and click on an in point and an out point. Or I can simply click on one of these buttons here to say, just grab the last 5 seconds. So there, we just had somebody do a kill, and you can see I just grabbed the last 5 seconds here. And that's what this is. This lets me set an in and out, or grab the last 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 20 seconds. And so that's what I just captured up here. So if I wanted to play that, there is the ability to just go and say, autoplay the last event. And so if I click this, you'll see now, I just did this segue in to the recording, displayed that, and then came back to the live feed. So this is the basic premise of how you can construct a replay system. You are recording everything, you have multiple cameras, and I can go in then and cut out segments of that live recording and save them as events that are coming through. So this is sort of the basic model that we're using. You'll notice here, though, that I also have, because I have two cameras, I have a camera 1 and a camera 2. So I can go in and I can say I want to have both of these cameras active. And now if I do this replay again, you'll see the same thing we had from one camera's perspective, and that flip was the second camera's perspective. So now you got to see this kill happen on both cameras for both players, and then it goes back. So taking this to the next step, I have this event. This is the in point and the out point for that event. So the full duration, about 5 seconds. And these are the cameras that I want to have live in that event when I play it back. I can pick one or the other or both. And, if I had 4 cameras, same thing. I could just have all the different angles play. And that's what you typically get in sports, where you'll look at multiple angles of the same play. That's typically what they're doing. They're just saying, I have all these cameras. These are the angles I want to show, and I do the replay. So the other pieces in here. In replay, you can play things out of 2 channels. You can say, I want to play the same thing out of A or the same thing out of B. Those are your 2 channels, an A channel and a B channel. The reason you have this is that sometimes you can be working on taking and fixing up a clip or a couple of clips that you want to play back. And you can say, I want to play this out channel B, and I leave my channel A open, or channel A and leave my channel B open. It's basically makes it easier for you to to feed out your replays and events in any way you want. So it doesn't create a bottleneck at a single channel where if I'm sending out one feed, I can't send out a second feed for another purpose. This gives you 2 feeds that you can use. So I will sort of touch on this more in our part 2 of this, where we talk more about replay as a standalone function. But for here, that's what we have set up here. The other thing that we have is a few more things. You can play back events at slower speed. So if I wanted to go back in here and say, I want to do this at half speed, I'll just do one camera for this. I'm doing this at half speed now. If I go and say play last event, you'll notice there's no sound because we said don't do it. And this is half speed, or I could even make it slower. I could, go down and make it, a quarter speed. So this is the way this is set up now. So we can do things where I can create events, show what cameras I want in the events, show what speed I want those events to play at. So this is sort of a general overview of the capabilities inside of replay. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is that you have, if you look up here, a whole set of tabs. And what you can do, and again, this is something we'll touch on a lot more in part 2, is you can actually take and move these events to different tabs that you could have for different reasons. So say when somebody wins a point, you could say this is team A wins, team B wins, and just set these tabs up for different purposes. And then when something happens, move these events in appropriately so you have them all organized and can use them for other things, like maybe post to social media or other stuff you may want to do. So this gives you an organizational tool. And there are other ways to tag them, to add, sort of little tags to each event clip so you know what's going on in that clip, and makes it easier to sort of know specifically what you're looking at, or if you need to find a clip, what to look for when you're going through a list of clips. Okay, so this hopefully will give you a decent overview here. What I'd like to talk a bit about is, let me turn this off for a second, is what I have sitting next to me over here, which is an XKeys replay controller. So this basically maps to everything that we were just looking at. So if you remember, I have all the different keys for both channels, A channel, B channel, everything we talked about. This allows me to say, what camera do I want to send out channel A? What camera do I want to send out channel B? Remember, we had the 2 cameras that are available to us. You have all of the playback capabilities here. So I could go in and play, and there's a lot more in here than what I talked about there. So this gives you sort of a general direct contact for everything you want to do. This lets you do things like skip frame forward and frame backwards. This can set the direction. If I want to play the video backwards or play it forward, I have the ability to do that. I can do play and pause here. So again, another set of controls that you have for this. I also have a jog and shuttle here. So I can move back and forth and sort of go from a, so let me actually just, if I can sort of show you what this looks like, let me just put this out here. So I'm going to sort of just put this replay up here. Let me turn the audio off so I'm not. So if you look here, I can sort of move through. Where am I set at? Okay. So I can move through when I'm doing an edit. Give me a second here to sort of pull this back up. So if I have this video here, so let me just play this back at 100%. So, sorry, this is my fault. I apologize. Just give me a second here. Cut this over. So, okay. So now let me just play this back and this should work here. Okay. So now you see that come in. So I can pause this video. And now if you come over here and you see, I can actually just sort of scroll through this, or I can slide through it more quickly just by turning the knob there. I also can sort of play and pause. I can go frame by frame. So if I wanted to do something in very specific detail, so say, did the foot touch the line before the ball crossed the goal or whatever, you have this ability now to do these types of things that are really key to any type of instant replay. The other thing, which I mentioned where you can change the speed, that's what this slider over here is for. So if I came back and said, let me sort of play this video going forward, I can now, oh, I just went back. So let me just launch this again so we can start to work with this. Okay. So now I have this, if you look here, set at 0. So I can set the speed very slowly and control it. And then if I want at some point to say, okay, let's just stop here, then I can move frame by frame forward or backwards. If I'm, I can pause it, push this up to full speed then to get it going back, and pause it at any point that I want as I'm working on this. So when you have a physical controller like this, it gives you a really direct way to interact with that video playback. And that's a lot of what you see in most games that are broadcast. You don't just get the quick replay played back. You usually have somebody that's sitting there pausing it, using a telestrator to circle something that they want to point out, and then going on and playing it and doing things where they're coming up to a line and saying, okay, did their foot go out of bounds before they caught the ball? These types of things, all of those controls now are laid out here. You have the ability to single step, to sort of single step through a shuttle control, and to control the speed through the T-bar that's over here. So let me talk a bit about how you would add this into your vMix session. So when you get this controller, it basically, you'll plug it in. It's just an XKeys controller. But if I go over to my vMix session over here, what I can show you is we go into settings. And in settings, what it wants, the way to start this is to go into shortcuts. And you can see I have a whole bunch of shortcuts that are set up that are already mapped to here. But the way you would work with this is you go over to something called templates. And in the templates, you can pick whatever template you want to add to work with your vMix session. And in this case, we're working with the replay controller, the XKeys replay controller. There are multiple versions of this. So they have different key layouts for different things. And so that's important to keep in mind. when working with this, we had to remap some of these keys because this is a more current controller than is directly supported in vMix 26. We believe there is a good mapping for vMix 27 for this, but we didn't want to go with the beta yet for our live shows. But this will give you a sense. It's the first thing you have to do is say, I want to add this template. And when you add this, since we've already done this, I will just close this out. When you add this, all of these controls are now set up. So it basically loads all of these shortcuts for all of the replay controls that are in the X keys. The next thing you need to do is, if you notice, and so look over here, each of these here, right in there, say 2:62. The way the X keys is working is as a MIDI controller, effectively. It's sending MIDI commands. And MIDI has channels and keys. So basically, what you're doing is saying, on channel 2, I'm sending key press 62 to do this function. So what you have to be sure when you set this up is that your MIDI settings for this device are correctly set. So if you come in here and go to channel mappings, you see this is the controller, and all of these are on channel 2. There's 16 MIDI channels here, but we're using channel 2. So you want to make sure that you're set up to channel 2 for this controller to get this to line up with all the shortcut commands that came into the template. The last thing you want to do, though, is you want to go over to your activators, because this is controlling different lights and everything on the controller. And what you want to do when you set this up is you click on Enable Devices here and make sure that you have the X keys controller selected, because this is going to make sure that now all the activators will work with this controller. So those are the 3 steps to installing it. And what's great is that once this is installed, it will work across all of your sessions. So these are all set up as global commands. So all of these shortcuts here. So you don't have any issues where, in your shortcuts, all of these are going to be available every time you create a new vMix preset. So if you're doing a lot of sports, you can just guarantee yourself that you'll have this set up here one time. Any changes to make, all that stuff will be respected, and it's there for you. But just keep in mind, based on the different controllers that are available, you may have to remap some of these things just to work as you would expect. But by and large, this is pretty much a turnkey. Once you put it in, load these, everything should work for you. So let me sort of come back for a step here and get to comments, because I think we may have a few more comments that we've had since the intro. So Vlad is asking, hi, John, do you need to be recording to be able to utilize instant replay? So the quick answer is you don't need to be recording to play back clips that event clips that you've made in the past. So you have that ability. You don't have to be recording either to modify those clips. So you can go in and you can change the in and out points. But you do need to be recording to actually use it as a replay system. So if you want to capture a camera angle and play that back, you have to have this recording going all the time. And there are a couple of modes to this. There's a live mode and a sort of a editing mode. And we'll go into that a lot more next week. But that gives you the ability where you can work to edit these individual clips and then jump into live if something comes up, or go to the live event and sort of edit clips from there. So different ways to use this to do more advanced single operator doing replay only sort of modes, but you do need to be recording to use the replay at a baseline, to be able to capture clips and play them back. So 2 cameras recording all the time, doesn't this eat up a lot of disk space? The quick answer is yes, it does. you're doing, like, I think this said at the low quality is 48 megabits per second. So that will eat up disk space. This is why definitely recommend having this as a dedicated disk and cleaning things off. But you saw, I mean, even in this I could have recorded in low quality, and I believe it's just a 2 terabyte drive we have. So it's a pretty much a standard SSD, probably, $150 for that, 2 terabyte. And that will record over 9 hours with 4 cameras. So it is very usable in even more modest configurations. So if I had like a 512 gigabyte hard drive or SSD drive, I would be able to, probably record 2 or 3 hours on there with multiple cameras. So I think even though it's a fair amount of space, it's something you could definitely integrate into a regular system without breaking the bank if replay were important. Okay, could you do this with the Stream Deck Plus, which has knobs? Yeah, I think the biggest difference, and I think if you look at the X keys and what makes this so attractive, is that the controls are really designed around almost what an editor would have. So when I do editing on DaVinci, I actually have a controller with exactly this on it. So it makes it very easy for me to, scroll through events and position them. And I think, yes, everything that's in here you could do with sort of traditional shortcuts, but having this control, that sort of tactile feel, I think is different. And on the Stream Decks, those knobs don't have any sort of center point to them. So I don't know exactly how that mapping would take place. So I haven't really looked into that. But this has sort of self-centering and moving, so when I go here and I let it go, it goes back to center position. And this gives me that sort of very granular control. I just like, for this type of thing where I think it's visual and tactile in a really great way for doing replay. And especially when you start to think of some of the stuff we're going to talk about in our next show, where you may be building clips and highlight reels and other stuff, this is really very well laid out. But as we said, everything that we have here is driving off of standard controls that are inside vMix and can be something that you could map to other controllers. But I just really find this an excellent sort of form factor ergonomic layout for instant replay. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other comments here? So Vlad is saying, so that knob is what they use in NBA to review who touched the ball last. Yes, this is. So even if you're not using replay as part of a production, it could be used actually for, referees, where they can say, give me all the angles and take a look. So actually, since we're talking about this, let me show you something, because this sort of fits very nicely into that question. So let me sort of slide this replay controller off. And if you look here, I have replay A and replay B. So I'll just set these up. So there's replay A is camera 1, replay B is, let me just get this here. Give me a second. So I have camera 1 and 2, and I have this set up here. So what you can do is, if I have these, now I'm not sure why I'm seeing the same thing in both of these here, but so let me see. But this aside, so let me sort of just jump into this without going this. When I have A and B set up here, and I move the controller, I am moving both A and B together in sync. So this is the sort of thing where you want to see, like, I can see their foot touching the line, but another camera angle may have a better shot of the ball that they're holding, things like that. This lets you step through frame by frame across all of the different shots that you've captured. So that's something that I think is very, very powerful. It gives you a synchronized view of every single camera. And when you step forward, step by step, you get to see all 4 of those views. So that's, just something to keep in mind. This gives you, a really cool way to work through this. And, this is something where I think as you start to work with replay, it can do a lot of these types of things where it's either synchronized or it's creating individual shots that you want or create shots for highlight reels. So having multiple cameras, you may not want them all for the sports action on the field, but it could definitely be something that you'd want to do for creating highlight reels where, I want to get shots of the crowd and the coach talking to the player. I want to get as well as the action on the field. So you can start to think of it now in a broader context where it's much more than simply a, sort of a action replay controller, but it can be used for a lot of other purposes. So that's something to think about as you think through what you can do with the with replay as a capability here. And the other thing, because we always talk about this with things with sports and other things, but if you were at a conference or an event, I mean, your ability to go and sort of clip little highlight reels from a speaker presentation and post those to social media. I mean, you have that ability now. This is a very powerful general tool that can work in a lot of different places, where you can make little reels and send those out and share those to say, come to my talk tomorrow. This is what we talked about today, things like that. So I think there's more use cases than we typically think of for replay when we think of it solely in the sports context. But I just wanted to do something here with esports to sort of demonstrate what was going on. So let's see. So Josh is saying, what's awesome about the X keys is all the blank space. They're still valid, but and that's true. I mean, if you have these things, you can actually go and if I needed to take and move buttons over or change things here to work with additional button presses, and that's one of the things next week we're going to talk about is adding additional commands to help with editing. You have a lot of flexibility with this, and I come back to the ergonomics. This is very, very convenient. If you were thinking of sitting in front of a screen with this, that would be a very powerful focal point for doing replay, especially if you are a replay operator. You're not sort of the solo operator, which is more what we showed today, where you can just bounce back and grab individual clips. If you are a replay operator and that's your sole job, this is a great UI for what you need to do. Okay, so what else do we have? And I think Tom is right. Stream Deck is, it's a great tool and it's very, very flexible for a lot of things. And we use them for a lot of things we do around switching. But I think for this I would agree with Tom on this, that the X keys is a better tool for this type of production work. But so let's see. So Bishoy says he's never used an X key. Need to try it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of control surfaces for different things. Like I think the Behringer X Touch for audio is phenomenal. And I would much prefer working with that to a Stream Deck for, with the little knobs. It's just so much more convenient. And again, it marries a form factor that I'm used to in a mixer. Same here. This would be what a replay controller would look like. So anybody who's sort of a professional replay operator would very quickly feel comfortable sitting in front of this. It'd be something that they could natively just pick up and use. I think that's an important thing as you start to think about more complex productions, being able to crew them with something that they can just come in and start to work with, I think becomes important. So the solo operator, you probably have more options for how you want to do this. If you're a dedicated replay operator, I think having this type of service in front of you is really, really valuable. Okay, so, all right. So let me just wrap up with a few more things I want to touch on for how this would all operate. So if I come back here and sort of let me just sort of put these in two. So I have, if I'm working on a replay, let me open this up. So say I have the this replay that I have set up here. I have the ability to actually go in and work with the in and out points on here. So I could go, and if you look, I just could sort of sit here and I can scroll down and change the endpoints. So if you're looking at this number here is like 1413. I can go and say I'm now changing, oh, sorry, so that's like 24, and move up to 41. So, and you can see, so this is, 1403, and this is 1346. So I can just move these around to change in and out points when I'm working on something. So that is very useful, because now I could go and edit this into whatever type of framework I'd need to do editing. The other thing, which I didn't really talk much about, is that there is this sense of live versus sort of just working in the recording. So if I turn live off, let me sort of show you what we see over here. So now you see this is just sort of sitting here frozen with live off. I can then go in and do any type of editing I want here. So let me actually just sort of call this up on the screen, and so you can sort of see this here. So I can come in here now and I can do any type of editing I want on this. And if you see, I'm just moving back and forth. I can go and I can change the in points and the out points on this. So this lets me sort of move things around and sort of reset things to where I want to get these things exactly lined up here. And so I can say, okay, make that the endpoint. And that I can make a new clip with a new endpoint for that by just going my in and out points. I can just take the current event and I can turn around and say, okay, set an endpoint for this. I can, sort of move forward now and set the out point. So this gives me easy ways to start to edit clips, take one clip and make sub clips out of it. So the ability to work with clips once you have them there is very, very powerful. And if I needed to go up to what's currently live, there's a button here which says go to now, which I could just press. And that's going to be, this is what's currently going on live over here. So it just jumps me to the last live frame, but still keeps me out of live mode. And this lets me do things like I could be editing a whole set of clips, and then you could have a producer say, we have a touchdown. I could just click go to now, and then I could work from there and say, okay, let me make that clip and send that out as a replay. And you could edit that in. And this gives you some flexibility. Or I could just turn back and say, okay, I want to go back to live mode now. And that means that when I click like -5, that's just going to take the last 5 seconds off of live. The other ways when I do that, I'm editing clips that go further back in the recorded history. But we're going to dig into that an awful lot in next week's show. But I wanted to really cover this as sort of from the solo operator perspective. If I just had one feed coming in, my ability to go and just say, I can, like say we have all these events and we don't want these, I can just clean out the old events I had. And so if I'm just a solo operator and get rid of those, I can go back and say, okay, let me come down here and I'm going to take the last 10 seconds. So I just created a clip of the last 10 seconds. I can then say, let's just play this back. And, this will give me, so this is actually, let me have this on 0. So you can see now I'm just playing this back so I could actually look at it. And, that just gives me, you can see it's counting down for this. So as a solo operator, this becomes something that's really simple. So if I come back and I have, let me get this out. So we'll just go and say, let me take and put my 2 clips here. If I come in here now and say, I want to see this now, that clip looked good. I want to go back and I want to play this. You now see it has the whole stinger coming in. We'll play this out. You see the countdown. It turns red as you get to 5 seconds and then comes out. So this makes it very easy for you as a solo operator to just sort of run through all of this. You don't have to do a lot of manipulation. You just sort of sit there and go, nope, I just grab a clip and then go and say, oh, I just want to play that clip back. And it's very, very simple. So as you're going along, you can do that. You can grab clips that you may not want to play back. You can turn around and say, I just thought that was a good clip and I want to hold that. And so you could just build a whole bunch of clips that are here, all related, and just play back the ones you want. But now you've sort of time-stamped your video. And if you think about this in the context of something like an editor, you make an edit decision list where you sort of go through and pick what are all the points, all the clips I want, and the in and out points. That's basically what nonlinear editing is like. And you're doing that now in a live context. You're sitting here going, let me grab this clip, let me trim the in and out points, I can organize them, I can move clips up and down, and we'll get to that whole part of clip manipulation next week. But I could take this clip and say, I want to play this clip, pick the previous or next, or move this clip up to the top. And you can see that clips are numbered. So I move 3 on top of 2, or I can move it down to say, move this back down. So 3 under 2. I have the ability to sort of edit, organize, and lay out, and then play these back. I can play them back individually. That's what we've been seeing. But you also have something where you could play everything. So if you look down at the controller over here, there's something at the bottom that says event play all. And that basically says, take all these clips that I said and just play them all back. That gives you this type of ability now where I can create these little packages and save them for different things and then play them out as necessary. So that's everything I wanted to cover sort of as an introduction to instant replay here. But next week, what I really want to focus on is much more around all of the editing. And I'll sort of just give you a little teaser. One of the things you can do, just like you have the ability to pull the audio mixer and put it onto its own monitor, you can do the exact same thing with instant replay. So what I'm going to do is, if you look at down here, I can go and say, I want to unpin this. And if you look at, I have another monitor over here. This is now the instant replay set up as a single screen, where I have, these are my event A and B, and these are my cameras that are coming in. And I have all that set up here. So this just gives me a lot of flexibility as the dedicated replay operator to sort of see everything that's going on. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this screen on next week's show, but I just wanted to sort of call that out, that is there, just like you can do with audio, to manage replay. The other way, very straightforward and simple for a solo operator. This is ideal for a dedicated replay operator. Okay, so what I probably would like to do now is let's sort of wrap this show, and we'll jump into the post show. We can talk about anything you'd like to here, but if you can hang around, that would be great. If you can, I want to thank you for making the time. We will have part 2 of this next Friday, and if I don't, see you in the post show, I'll see you next Friday. Be well. Take care. See you then. All right, welcome back, everybody. So this has actually been a lot of fun, because this is something that I was actually fairly new to, and so I spent a lot of time sort of researching this to make sure I could sort of represent this pretty well. This is a whole area that's a skill role. Inside the same way you'd have an audio engineer, having a replay engineer is also a sort of a skill role inside a production team. So this would be something where if you wanted to really gain proficiency here, this would be a great way to start, to sort of picking shots and understanding, what people would want to see in a replay. But let's see. So Tom has something here he just mentioned. He says he uses replay during church services to capture an event like bells during a prelude. Yeah, and that's one of the things you can do. Let's see. I didn't really show this, but let's see if we can just switch over to the second screen over here. Get that on with me over here. Let's see. So down here, what I can do is I can select a whole set of clips, and then I could go and say, I want to export these clips, which will let me send them out as a file. Where do I want to export them? What's the format I want to export them to, the audio and everything else. So you can do just the selected clips or just all of them. So this gives you the ability to, you can send them out as individual events, or you can combine them together into one long event. So if you actually wanted to use this as an edit station, you could do that. You could come in here and you could take each of these clips. So let me just sort of show you very quickly. I mean, if I came up here and I have each of these, any of these clips here, I could go in and I could go and, make adjustments to the in and out points. And that's, again, where I have the ability to do that on the controller over here, which is what I'm using right now. I can go in and change the in and out points and basically build a whole edit here. So you may not even be doing replay in the sense to say, like, you're just talking about this as a church service. Say you wanted to go in and create I won't say a highlights reel, but if you wanted to create something that was well packaged to distribute online. So say you wanted to do something which combines certain elements of the service plus the lesson or homily and package that together. This is something that would let you do that as the service is going on. You could take and actually have somebody sort of doing that assembly and then putting it up there. So maybe somebody would want to be able to, listen to this or watch this as sort of a snippet during the week for something, that you could do for motivational reasons. So there's a lot of use cases for instant replay that go beyond just the action on the field, as they say. And we think that's definitely something that's pretty interesting here. Okay, thanks, Tom. I think that's again, there's a lot of use cases here, and that's a great example of that. So thank you. Okay, so you saying my XKE-80 has no jog shuttle. He has an old Time Warp 42 from my TriCaster days. Central control software will let you use that. Yeah, I mean, central control is great for that. I love what Joe is doing with that product, and that will let you use sometimes older hardware with newer systems. And I think that's great because the older, especially for controllers, that older hardware is perfectly good. So the fact you can sort of use that, I think, is great. And, I agree. I mean, one of the biggest reasons for this controller, the XKE-64, is those like the jog shuttle controls and the granularity of control that gives you. And I think that's great. All the other things you could map, and that's all possible. But just those tactile controls for speed and for, sort of positioning through the timeline, I think this is, that's very, very useful. And I know that the Time Warp has those types of things on it. So that's a good fit for you. So absolutely. So Michael, saying hello from Denmark. Hope you're feeling better soon, Michael. I know Michael, is feeling a bit under the weather. So just wanted to wish you well. Feel better soon. Thank you for joining. So he's saying he just jumped in. So he says, how do you easily pick only one camera from maybe 4 cameras? Normally, I just want to show replay in show from one angle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the single vMix screen because that's the way most people will end up using this. So the way this will work, if you look here, these are just multiple events that I captured. When you capture an event, you capture every camera angle. You don't just capture one. And you can come back and say, which camera angle do I want to play on here. So when I have this highlighted, there are buttons on the X keys, which we'll go into next week, which let me pick to say which cameras do I want to show. So I could say I want to turn on camera 2 and turn off camera 1. I want to turn on both of them, so I could have both of them on there. You have to have one camera. And then when you play this back, you can do that. So say I only wanted to show camera 2 here. When I set this up and then sort of play this event back, so you can sort of see over. Oh, I have it on different screens, but so you sort of this is showing the replay, playing back from that point. I'm only showing that camera. If I wanted to, show the other camera, let me get my mouse pointer back here. So if I wanted to show the other camera, I could just go and pick that camera instead and turn off the first camera, or show them both. So that's how it would work, that you have this event camera control. So when I'm selecting an event, I can pick which camera or cameras in that event I want to play back. So that gives you that single angle. So the other thing is, Michael's asking, what's the idea behind the A, B, and AB buttons? So that's going to become clearer in sort of the next part 2 of this. But if you were a replay operator, what you can be doing, like a dedicated replay operator, what will normally happen is there will be a director who will be coming around and telling you when something happens that they want to capture. You will capture that, and then you can turn around and say, I'm sending this to you on A, and they'll know. They can have like 2 inputs on their production switcher that will take the A output or the B output. So there's 2 separate outputs. And so they would know to say, okay, you're queuing this up and getting it all ready to go out channel A. In the meantime, you may be coming back and saying, I have a couple of other things that I've queued up around this that I'm getting ready to send out camera B. So for them, they can turn around and say, I am just going to do a transition from camera A to camera B, for output A to output B in your vMix session. And you can, as the replay operator, you can be queuing things up out A or out B, and then you just tell whoever is doing the production switching to sit there and go, queued up on A or queued up on B, and then when they tell you, play, they can play, you can play and do the switch to that. And that's exactly how that works. So if you, actually, let me just switch over to the second screen here for a second, because this will give you an example here. What I have here is, this is an NDI studio monitor, and what I'm capturing is, over here, I have vMix output 2 and output 3 mapped to channel A, replay channel A and replay channel B. So if I'm coming here, I can have everything set up here, and when I want to do the playback on A, I can just hit play here, and now that's playing back out, and I could then go and get something else set up for B. So right now, A and B are linked together, because that's where you come and you have the AB, which is what you're talking about. What the AB is saying is these are linked together. So if I go up here and I instead go to vMix output 3, this is the B channel. So that I have, my camera 1 going out A, camera 2 going out B. And you can see, so these are synced up, and I can send these out as individual feeds, but I can also decouple them. So if I come back and say AB means that I'm working together. So let me just sort of pause this. Both A and B now are paused. So if I come back here, sorry, wrong one, and go back to here, I'm now paused at the same location. And if I start to use my scroll wheel to go through this, both of these are in sync. But if I go and say, I just want to go to A. A is what I'm manipulating now. That's when you click the A button. And now what you can see is, if I go and say, I'm going to play this, and we'll play it at a fairly slow speed to make this, I sort of set it like 25%. So if you come here and I say, okay, so now I'm playing A at 25%, but if I go up here again and switch over to My B channel is still paused. So I could be editing this. I could go and be setting different in points and out points and do that and have that ready to go out channel B. So these are two separate outputs. By A bar B means lock them together, time synced. And then when I move through one, I'm moving through the same in the other. That's very useful for doing things like capturing was the foot on the line while the ball was being held, with control, these types of things. This is great if you're trying to get different shots that you want to send to a director and have them be able to take them off two separate channels. So that's the A-B use case here. So yes, so that is the best way to think of it. The A and B is really if you are a solo, not a solo, if you are a dedicated replay operator, you use A and B as a way to queue things up for somebody downstream that's going to be taking those and putting them on air. So you notice this doesn't have the stinger, doesn't have any of that stuff. This is like the stinger is sort of a convenience for you locally. If they want a stinger downstream, they'll put the stinger on. So they'll do that as part of however they go into that camera feed and start that playing and then come back out. But that's something they're handling in the production. You are just acting now as a camera operator. So my job as a camera operator, whether it's a replay camera or a live camera, is to just give shots to the director that they can use. And so when they ask for something, you want to give them a well-trimmed clip and send that out as a shot. And that's what the two channels are for. Okay. So Vlad's just asking, would I give a hint about the next show? I mean, absolutely. Let me just sort of stop this stuff. I got a few things moving here. So let me just stop all this. Okay. So what I really focused on in this show was how to be a sort of a solo operator where I just want to sort of jump back in time, get clips, and do a quick replay back. What I want to talk about next week is really working with that full screen dedicated replay operator and how all of these controls would operate with that, different ways you would use them to sort of efficiently work as that dedicated operator. So it's really just taking everything we talked about today, and I've sort of shown some of the things that we're going to go into more detail in, but that's really it. It's really all about sort of moving forward with that and how that would work and different types of workflows around that. So sort of an extension of everything we did today, just sort of a deeper dive for some of the new things you can do here. All right. So, yeah, 100% Josh. A replay operator is its own art form. There's, everybody, on a crew sort of has to know their role and really be real-time excellent at it. If you're doing a live production, you have to be able to, I am one with the system. I don't need to think about what I'm doing. I just do it. And I have that, sort of muscle memory for capturing everything I need. And that's really, part of the art of being a replay operator. You have to be very, very quick. You have to be anticipating the types of things that you're going to be asked to do. And from there, you can come back and say, okay, I have these things ready to go and to send out to a director as soon as he calls them. And maybe some of them, they won't be called for, but your job in that position is really say, I want to get you the things you need or may need so I can get them to you very, very quickly. But that's absolutely, just like a good audio operator or a good PTZ camera operator who's sitting there going, I'm getting you shots. I'm knowing what you probably want to cut to based on what you're on now. And, all of these positions have a certain element of anticipation. But it's funny because this is one of the things when crews work together a lot and they get to know each other, you build that type of rhythm as a team. So as opposed to thinking of it as an isolated set of skill positions, what you really think of it very much is a true team that is orchestrating with each other, where you don't have to tell me necessarily what you need. I will sort of know and anticipate the types of things you like and how you like to, I'll get those ready for you. So having that type of rhythm with a crew is really, really valuable. And I've seen both. I've seen crews that, sort of came together and they don't gel. But I've also seen crews that are amazing. They just hum. It's almost like, minimum talking, minimum panic, all the things that you've sort of experienced internally during a production. You just like, nope, it just well orchestrated, very clean, very streamlined. So yeah, but getting that plus an understanding of what people are looking for, I think, together are great. But definitely its own art form. So okay, so unfortunately, we're still not getting comments in our vMix social from Facebook, but Tom Sinclair has jumped on Facebook and came in and said, he's here. What did he miss? So we tried to go over sort of all the core elements inside of replay, sort of focusing mainly on being a sort of a solo operator where you just need to go and grab back in time and send that out as a replay and then switch back to live. So that's most of what we covered today with, setting up the, going through all the components that are inside replay and then setting up the X keys to sort of map those internal buttons to a physical controller and then how you would sort of use that. So that's what we covered. A great conversation with everybody in the community here too. There's a lot of back and forth around different use cases that people have had, and some questions about what the role of different components are inside of replay. So we're trying to cover a lot of ground here. So we're actually doing this as two parts, as I mentioned. So that catches you up, Tom. All right. So Michael's saying, so just jumped in, so might have been discussed already. How do you easily pick only one camera from the maybe 4 cameras? Okay, no, that's something we got to say. So Vlad's saying, what's a cheap way to communicate between vMix operator and camera operator? If you want to tell the camera guy to give me a wide shot or a close-up. So there are lots of ways to do this. It really depends on how specific you need to be. You can do something where, a lot of people just use a cell phone and they'll all come on. There are apps for that on the cell phone where you can have sort of a clear comm style intercom between different groups. Some of it can be where you will just have a sort of a single group chat, and you'll just listen for the director, and if it's your position he's calling, you'll be able to do that. And you just have an earpiece in, and you can make that work. And that's everybody sort of has a cell phone as long as they have it plugged in during the production so it doesn't die. That would be a simple way to do it. But there are a lot of more traditional, as I mentioned, ClearComm, they have a whole range of products, but there are other software-based and hardware-based comm systems. But people probably very much on here may know of other comm systems they use that they're really happy with. So please feel free to post that if there's something that you've been using that you think is great. So. Pape Colley is saying, what is the best vMix settings when using a camera sending 1080i 50 interlaced in 25 frames? It isn't great for replaying sports. So yes, interlaced, it doesn't work well for replay, certainly, because when you pause, you're in the middle of sort of 2 frames. There's the first frame that paints all the even rows, and then the next that paints all the odd rows, basically. So there is, what you need to do is you need to convert that into progressive. And there are, like, PSF format is something which, gives you sort of segmented, so you can convert a an interlaced into a progressive, but you do lose frame rate because your 60 interlace or 50 interlace frames is only 25 progressive frames because it's half a frame painted each refresh. So you are just getting 25 frames. So there isn't really a good answer. What I would suggest is if the 1080i 50, if the camera itself isn't natively interlaced, I would down the frame rate to, like, if you could do 1080p 25, that would be better than an interlace. The other thing is you may find that you could do 720p 50, where I'd rather give up on resolution to keep a high progressive frame rate. So that may be another thing. Without knowing specifically what your camera is, that could be something else that might get you there. I would definitely go for progressive high frame rate and knock the resolution down, but that would get me there. Okay. So Bill is saying he's replays something to only use occasionally, and he has 2 Stream Decks and 1 Stream Deck Plus. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to invest in a controller, replay should be a core part of what you do. And I think it's for everybody. The great thing about the way vMix is designed is that you can sort of come in at all different levels. You can go in to say, gee, I want to make sure my replay is foundationally solid and I have a great interface. If it's something you're using rarely or, intermittently for things, you can just map other, all the functions to it. Inside of, if you go into the shortcut section in vMix, there's a whole replay section of all the shortcuts that would let you, set all this up. So, yes, it can work with lots of things. It can work with the keyboard, and there are different ways you can do replay based on how you want to sort of navigate through clips and then play them back. So, this is definitely, the X keys is a more traditional replay interface, but one of the cool things about productions in general is that there are so many different ways to go about it that can be optimized very specifically for what you need to deliver. And, vMix gives you that flexibility. So totally agree. That's a great solution for you, Bill. So you were saying, will vMix accept my RT-SP feed for instant replay? I will have another camera coming in via my A10 Mini. So what you're doing. So let me jump back to the interface over here because I want to show you exactly how this would be working if you were using a vMix as a separate replay controller. So if you come up to settings, the way I have this set up is I go to outputs. And so if you look here, let me hide this. See if I can scroll down here. Sorry, just give me a sec. What I have here for output 2 and output 3 is input 6 and input 7. So this is my replay channel A, and that's my replay channel B. So I have those with NDI on, but you have the ability to, to go and say, how do I want to send this? Do I want to send this out as SRT? So what you could do is I could take and send this specific replay channel out as an SRT feed that could be picked up downstream. So I don't know if there is a way to get this to loop out as RTMP, but you certainly could do this as SRT and send these out as 2 separate SRT channels that could be picked up by a TriCaster, by vMix, by, I believe, Wirecast. So I want to make sure that, I'm understanding you correctly. So if you're looking for your replay here, you have another camera that's coming in via your A10 Mini. So in short, anything that comes in as a camera should be. I have not tried an RTMP feed to add that. I could, well, I don't actually have one set up here, so let me see. So if I just, we'll set this up. This is all fake. I'm not doing anything. So let's see. You wanted RTMP. Okay. I don't have a URL set, but let's see if it, yeah, it won't let me. I don't have it set up to test, but what I would do is I would just take a look at this and say, if I could set up, let me see if I just set up something that's a dummy URL, if it would take it. Okay, we'll just set up something stupid and see if that will work. Let me get in. Nope, I can't do it. So there's no easy way for me to do a test, but this is what I would look at. I take this in and say, add an RTMP, and if you see that, when you come over to your instant replay here, do I see that as one of the channels? So let me sort of stop this so I can go in and start to play. So if you're looking here, this only shows my outputs and my cameras, my NDI feeds coming in. So I would just have to see whether this would take an RTMP feed. I don't know offhand. So I tried to test it here, but didn't have everything set up for that. But this would be something you could test pretty directly yourself. Just set this up, create an RTMP feed, and see if you see it here. If you see it here, it'll work. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have? So John is saying he's done quite a lot of replay work for others, and yeah, I think it's funny. Replay is not something that a lot of people are necessarily comfortable with. Yeah, and that's it. It's like it as long as you're able to deliver what somebody needs inside their workflow. Because you're part of a sort of a bigger team. I think it's, whatever, it doesn't matter what gear you're actually using. And we always talk about that here. It's like, you don't have to think, what gear do I need to do what I want to do? I'm much more focused on, can I do what I want to do with the gear I have? And how can I extend that and make that work? And I think that's, to a certain extent, John comes in with the skill set and the gear to support that skill set, and then he can just do what he needs to, and if that integrates, that's great. So thank you for sharing that, John. That's that's definitely I think having all your own gear makes you even more value for a lot of positions. So that's definitely cool. So all right, so let's see. What's your background, John? You know a huge amount of us. So my background is I'm a technologist. I started out as a programmer, and so I did. I started several companies, technology companies, in the financial markets, all around information processing, sort of tagging, categorization, things like that. About 12 years ago, I'd always had a passion for video and always was doing it as a hobby. I said, I want to go in and start a company that sort of focuses on video. And that's where we started to build out our live to air for the remote callers. And in doing that, I became more involved with people's productions and workflows. And sort of from there, I just had the benefit of very generous people sharing their knowledge with me. And that sort of helped me come along with a lot of things. But one thing I never want to represent is that I have real world production experience. I don't crew. I don't do things like that. So mine is sort of secondhand experience and things I've researched and sort of followed up on when something piqued my interest. So that's really where I come from. I come at things more as a technical problem solver. So I have that sort of engineering bent for how do I take complex problems and break them into simple, easier to solve problems. And I sort of just apply that to whatever I do. So that's sort of my background. But it's programming to be honest, though, my days of programming, I can't keep up with any of the younger people today. So I don't even pretend. I just I just I just sort of direct from afar and let them show me what they're capable of and what I'm not capable of anymore. So Bill, you're very welcome. I really enjoy this, and as I said, the thing for me was that I had a lot of people who shared what they knew, and so I definitely had that sort of that desire to to do the same thing, not as somebody who's deeply experienced in a real world context, but who at least can take and try to break things down for the people that are actually trying to use it in real world productions and make it more accessible. So that's sort of what we do here. And, I really enjoy this. This community is fantastic. And I feel really blessed that people are willing to come back week after week and be part of this. So thank you. I definitely appreciate that. So you were saying he has two sources, one camera via A10 Mini, the other is an RTSP stream from my network. I will try it in 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's the best way is to just set that up. I don't have something here. I would have definitely tried it here for you, but if it does see that as a camera, I think it will work. It's just like NDI. It looks at NDI. Doesn't matter what it really is, whether it's a camera or not. It just looks at NDI as a camera source. So that could definitely be something that will work with RTSP as well. So John is saying you can pull RTMP into vMix, but you can't push RTMP into vMix. But yeah, so you can use Nginx. I'm not familiar with that, so I'd have to look at that. So thanks. Let me write that down so I get that. Nginx. So I'll take a look at that. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing stuff with RTMP, the other option is you can convert potentially RTMP to NDI, which definitely does work because they're basically transports with encoded video inside, and so it probably is something that could be done either RTMP or SRT, but hopefully let me know. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm saying RTMP and you're using RTSP, but yeah, you can take them in. I'm just not sure whether it would be shown as a camera. So I'm sorry if I misspoke before, but yeah. So just check that out yourself and see. But if the RTSP when you bring it in looks like a camera, you'll see it as one of the options in your replay drop down for sources. So Bishoy says, we love it here. Well, thank you, Biz. I appreciate that. So Vlad's saying that the technical problem solver has been utilized very much by relatives and friends during the pandemic. Yeah, it's funny. I think anybody that, has that engineering discipline, doesn't matter what engineering mindset, it doesn't really matter what you do. It applies to so many different things. It's that ability to look at big problems and sort of understand how you can sort of decompose them into smaller, solvable problems, as opposed to trying to look at the big problem as one monolithic thing that can be overwhelming. But yeah, and I know during the pandemic there was a lot of there was a lot of people that were moving in different directions trying to get different technical infrastructures in place. So being able to solve those problems and sort of deal with it in real time is a great skill to have. So Bill Mew is saying Blackmagic, you're adding SRT to many devices as well as RTMP. So soon you'll be able to pull SRT straight into vMix. Yeah, I mean, if you can do that right from the Blackmagic, that would be great. And that's again just a something that if they add it natively into some of the software that sort of runs with the ATEM, that would be great. But I know some of the higher end ATEMs do support that, I believe. So that's something that will probably be there for you as well. So thank you, Bill. So John's saying Nginx is a small reverse proxy cache. You can compile it with a RTMP module or pull a pre-built Docker. So I'm definitely going to look into that. Thanks, John. That sounds really cool, actually. So, all right. So, thank you all for making time. I think we're probably covered everything everybody's interested in talking about. So if you have any other questions, just like get them in now. Very quickly, I originally was going to start this as a single show, but as I got into it and I saw there really are two totally different ways of working with replay, one as the solo operator and the other as a dedicated replay operator. I thought it would make sense to break them into two, and I thought that would give us a better chance to show different features inside of the X keys as well, so how that maps to real world use cases, because I think that's the most important thing. It's got to have context inside of what people are doing in the real production space and not just be abstract concepts. So this is something that I thought would be better split in two. So this was a decision we basically made yesterday morning, where we're looking and going, yeah, there's really a whole separate way to approach this. So I very much appreciate you sticking with us for. John's got another. He says, I bring a Lenovo Tiny PC with Pro Xbox and use that to host a small network service like Nginx, TeamSpeak, and other services for the production. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these small PCs are incredibly powerful, and with the software on them, a lot of it's very lightweight. So sort of that combination of increased power and more efficient apps for a lot of these things. There's a ton of stuff you can do with a very small footprint. Things like TeamSpeak, that's another perfect example. We talked about different types of comm systems. There are things like TeamSpeak that, is used in gaming, but that would work well here as well. So, different things. You can even set stuff up in vMix with sort of shortcuts and aux buses, and have people just listening to NDI feeds coming out of the different buses. So different things to do with that as well. Yep. So thank you, John. So John is saying Dave is saying he has to get back to work. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you making the time to join us here. Enjoy. So, all right then. So thanks, everybody. We will be here next week with part 2 of our show. And until then, everybody, be safe, be well, and I'll see you Friday.